Emily's heart pounded as the mortgage envelope slipped through her trembling fingers. The debt felt like an overwhelming shadow, consuming every penny and every hope. She wasn't alone. Millions of Americans, like Emily, lived on the brink of financial collapse, trapped in a vicious cycle of interest and minimum payments. It's a scenario where dignity is the first thing mortgaged, and financial survival becomes an unattainable luxury. But there's a way out, a legal tool to help those knocked down by the avalanche of debt. A chance to breathe again and rebuild a sustainable future. Michael, a father of two from Atlanta, Georgia, felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The financial crisis didn't catch him by surprise, but the speed with which his finances crumbled left him stunned. He started using his credit card for basic expenses like groceries and gas shortly after his hours were cut at the factory. The minimum payment became an unbearable burden, and calls from collectors a constant presence. Michael didn't realize it, but he was crossing the line into over-indebtedness. In the United States, the Federal Reserve Board indicates that consumer debt has reached record levels, with trillions of dollars in credit card and personal loan debt, a burden many families struggle to bear. Many, like Michael, confuse having debt with being over-indebted. The crucial difference is that in over-indebtedness, the ability to maintain a minimum standard of living, housing, food, healthcare, transportation, and basic education is irreversibly compromised. It's not just about having many bills. It's about having debts that prevent a dignified survival for you and your family, severely impacting quality of life. Clear indicators that you're on the brink of financial collapse include the chronic inability to pay essential bills on time, resulting in late fees and penalties, constant reliance on new loans or new credit to cover old debts, a kind of kicking the can down the road that only worsens the problem. The indiscriminate use of overdrafts or credit cards for daily basic necessities, like groceries and medications, instead of just for emergencies or convenience. And the overwhelming feeling that no matter how hard you work or try, your debts only grow, and the situation seems impossible to reverse. Anxiety, financial stress, and depression are psychological symptoms that frequently accompany this situation, affecting mental health and the ability to make rational financial decisions. Michael, for instance, started experiencing insomnia, losing his appetite, and avoiding opening mail and answering the phone, anticipating more collection calls. Recognizing these signs early is the first and most vital step to avoid a complete financial meltdown and to seek help before the situation becomes truly unsustainable. The U.S. Bankruptcy Code, through Chapters 7 or 13, offers legal avenues to relieve this pressure and restructure finances. But identifying the problem before reaching that point can open up a wider range of solutions, such as amicable or mediated renegotiation, which are less drastic. Michael's pain and despair were real, and he needed a lighthouse to guide him out of the storm that threatened to engulf him completely. To understand Michael's journey, it is essential to delve into the deep-seated causes that drive so many Americans to the brink of bankruptcy, a complex phenomenon that extends far beyond simple individual financial mismanagement. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a renowned economist specializing in consumer finance at the University of California, Berkeley, and author of numerous studies on indebtedness, points out that the biggest causes of personal bankruptcy in the U.S. are not simply results of irresponsible spending, but rather a complex web of unpredictable events, structural failures, and the absence of a robust social safety net. According to recent studies from the American Bankruptcy Institute and other research institutions, the primary reasons include exorbitant medical expenses, which represent the leading cause of bankruptcies in the U.S., even for insured individuals. A single severe medical incident, prolonged treatment, or a chronic illness can quickly deplete savings, generate copayments, deductibles, and uncovered expenses that amount to tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, pushing families from all social classes into financial abyss. Dr. Vance emphasizes that approximately 66% of U.S. bankruptcies are linked to health issues, a shocking statistic that reveals the system's fragility for millions of citizens. Another crucial factor is job loss or significant income reduction, as happened to Michael. In an economy that can be volatile, instability in the job market quickly destabilizes family budgets, especially for those without emergency savings. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that millions of Americans face periods of unemployment or underemployment annually, and the lack of an adequate financial cushion for these periods is devastating. The excessive and often predatory use of credit, driven by a consumer culture, and the easy access to loans and credit cards with high interest rates is the third major cause. While credit offers short-term flexibility, it can lead to a vicious cycle of compound interest and minimum payments that trap consumers in an endless debt spiral. Michael, for instance, saw his credit card debts grow exponentially, even while paying the minimum diligently, due to extremely high rates. Other factors include divorce or separation, which can divide assets and income, but often maintains joint debts, doubling the financial burden on a single individual. And the rising costs of housing and education, which have become an unbearable weight for many American families. Dr. Vance strongly argues that financial education, while important, is not the sole solution to the problem of over-indebtedness. Public policies that support universal and affordable healthcare access, that guarantee a robust social safety net for job loss, and that more effectively regulate predatory lending practices are equally crucial. Furthermore, the ease with which financial institutions grant credit without a rigorous assessment of the consumer's ability to pay contributes significantly to the problem, creating a trap for those already in a vulnerable situation. Michael was not alone in his struggle. He was part of a massive statistic crying out for broader structural solutions than mere financial self-discipline. And he knew that millions of other Americans faced similar challenges, trapped in a system that often seemed to conspire against their stability. The turning point for Michael began not with a stroke of luck, but with an act of courage and humility. He decided to seek help at a nonprofit credit counseling center in his community, a step that, for many, is the hardest to take due to the stigma and shame associated with debt. He was exhausted by the daily collection calls that invaded his privacy and the constant worry that gnawed at his mental and physical peace. The counselor, Ms. Jenkins, an experienced woman with an empathetic gaze and calm voice, presented him with a clear path, not a magic solution, but a concrete and disciplined strategy to get out of the hole he was in. The first and most crucial step, which many avoid for fear of the raw truth, was to meticulously map out all debts without omission. Michael, with Ms. Jenkins' help, painstakingly listed every credit card, personal loan, car loan, and the dreaded mortgage, detailing not only the principal amount owed but also the interest rate, applied to each the minimum monthly payment and the total balance. This exercise, though painful, is fundamental, as it is impossible to plan an effective escape route without knowing the exact extent and nature of the minefield you re-in. Once the complete debt landscape was clear and documented, Ms. Jenkins guided him in creating a realistic and, above all, sustainable budget. A financial plan that identified and mercilessly cut non-essential expenses. Michael, to his surprise, realized he was spending a considerable amount on dining out, expensive daily coffees, and multiple streaming service subscriptions he barely used. Small cuts that added up freed a surprising amount that could be redirected to paying down debts, generating immediate cash flow relief. A highly effective debt repayment strategy discussed and applied was the debt snowball method, popularized by financial experts like Dave Ramsey. In this method, the tactic is psychologically powerful. You pay off the smallest debt first, while making minimum payments on the others. Once the smallest is paid off, the amount previously paid on it is fully added to the payment of the next smallest debt, and so on. The satisfaction of eliminating a debt, even a small one, generates crucial psychological momentum, building confidence and motivation to continue the process. Another alternative, the debt avalanche method, was also presented. This one focuses on paying off debts with the highest interest rates first, which saves more money in the long run. For Michael, the priority was immediate psychological relief and a sense of tangible progress. So the snowball method fit his emotional profile better and kept him engaged. In addition to planning and repayment strategies, Ms. Jenkins advised him to actively negotiate with creditors. To Michael's surprise, many banks, financial institutions, and credit card companies are willing to negotiate lower payments, reduced interest rates, extended payment plans, or even partial debt forgiveness to avoid a complete default and the consequent loss of revenue. Michael, with the assistance and credibility of the counseling center, managed to reduce the interest rate on his credit card from an abusive 25% to a more reasonable 12%, an immense relief in his monthly payments that freed up money to attack other debts. This negotiation was a turning point, showing him that communication is a powerful weapon and that many institutions prefer an amicable solution to a bankruptcy process. The debt renegotiation process provided for by the law of over-indebtedness in the American context is a powerful legal tool that can involve professional mediation or even a request for judicial restructuring under Chapter 13 of the Bankruptcy Code, allowing for a court-supervised payment plan that respects the debtor's minimum living expenses. Although Michael did not reach the point of declaring bankruptcy, the strategies he applied are the foundation for any serious and effective financial recovery plan, validating that with discipline and the right support, despair can be transformed into hope and a tangible path to financial freedom. Michael's experience with over-indebtedness was a brutal reality check, but also, paradoxically, a gateway to a new and vital understanding: the transformative power of financial education. He realized that, before, he had operated on autopilot, driven by impulses and without truly understanding the impact of his daily financial decisions, a common behavior among many. One of the most widespread and repeatedly made by Michael throughout his adult life is the absence of a detailed and strictly followed budget. Many Americans, in a country with relatively easy access to credit, simply don't know where their money is going each month, resulting in impulsive spending, financial disarray, and the insidious accumulation of debt. According to alarming data from the National Financial Educators Council, a significant portion of the American population cannot pass a basic financial literacy test, highlighting a systemic educational gap that directly contributes to the cycle of indebtedness. Another serious and often fatal mistake for financial stability is the lack of an emergency fund. Dr. Vance, in her lectures and research, always emphasizes that having 3 to 6 months of basic expenses saved in an easily accessible separate account is crucial to absorb unexpected financial shocks such as job loss, severe illness, or urgent car or home repairs. Michael felt firsthand the absence of this safety net, which forced him to resort to expensive loans and credit cards when his work hours were cut, deepening his crisis. The inappropriate and irresponsible use of credit cards is another common trap that devours the wealth of millions. Cards are not an extension of income, but rather credit tools that, if not used with discipline and a clear understanding of how compound interest works, can generate devastating and almost impossible to pay off debt. Many pay only the minimum, perpetuating the debt for years and paying exorbitant interest that turns a $100 purchase into $300 or more. Michael used to view the credit limit as available spending money, not as a loan that needed to be paid back in full, often with very high rates. Ignoring bank statements, bills, and collection calls, in the illusory hope that problems will simply disappear, is also a self-destructive behavior. Procrastination in dealing with debts only causes them to grow exponentially, transforming small problems into major financial crises. Financial education, Michael understood, is not just about numbers and complex spreadsheets. It's about changing one's mindset towards money, cultivating healthy savings and investment habits, and developing the ability to make informed and conscious decisions about every dollar that comes in and goes out. He started reading personal finance books by renowned authors like Sue Zorman and Dave Ramsey, listening to informative podcasts, and attending financial planning workshops offered by his community. He learned about the importance of investing in himself, in his education, in new skills, and in his professional development to increase his long-term earning potential and ensure his employability. He also understood the vital need to plan for the future, setting clear and achievable financial goals, such as buying a home debt-free, ensuring his children's college education, or saving for a comfortable retirement, guaranteeing a more secure future for himself and his family. He understood that prevention is always cheaper and less painful than a cure, and that financial knowledge is, indeed, power, the key to a life of freedom and peace. With his budget under control and a debt repayment plan in progress, Michael realized that to accelerate his recovery and build a solid financial foundation for the future, he would need an additional financial boost. His counselor, Ms. Jenkins, with her practical and encouraging vision, suggested he actively explore strategies for earning extra income, something many Americans are now seeking in the current economy. In the U.S., the gig economy or freelance economy offers countless opportunities to supplement primary income, making it easier for individuals like Michael to generate extra capital. Michael, who had always been skilled with his hands and had a knack for assembling furniture and performing minor home repairs, began offering these services on weekends and during his free time. He utilized online platforms and service apps, which made it easy to connect with clients in his neighborhood and allowed him flexibility. Initially, it was a modest supplement, but soon he was earning a few $100 extra each month, which he diligently directed towards paying down his debts faster, propelling his progress. Other common options for extra income that Ms. Jenkins highlighted include driving for ride-sharing apps, like Uber or Lyft, delivering food for services like DoorDash or Grubhub. Tutoring in his area of expertise, offering online consulting services or selling handmade products or unused items on platforms like Etsy or eBay. The key to success is identifying skills and interests that can be monetized, or finding demands in the local market that he could fulfill. Extra income not only accelerates debt repayment and the building of an emergency fund, but also creates a sense of control, empowerment, and financial independence, reducing reliance on a single income stream. In addition to increasing his income, Ms. Jenkins began introducing him to the world of smart investments, even with limited initial capital. The goal she made clear was not to get rich overnight with high-risk investments, but rather to make his money work for him, even on a small scale, and to start building long-term wealth through the power of compound interest. She warned him about the risks of convoluted investments or get-rich-quick schemes and focused on safe, low-cost, and liquid options such as exchange-traded funds or low-cost mutual funds, which offer automatic diversification and reduce inherent market risk. Someone coming out of over-indebtedness, the primary focus is conservative growth, capital preservation, and gradual wealth accumulation, prioritizing security and stability over high, uncertain returns. She also taught him about the importance of diversification to avoid putting all his eggs in one basket, and mitigate risks and have a long-term vision, understanding that investments may fluctuate in the short term, but historically offer consistent returns over decades. Michael started with small but consistent contributions to a retirement account, like a 401k, through his employer, if available, taking advantage of any company match or an individual IRA, and a simple investment account through a low-cost brokerage. He learned that consistency and regularity of contributions are more important than the initial amount invested, And that time is an investor's greatest ally. Extra income and investments, which once seemed like privileges of the wealthy, were something unattainable for someone in his situation, became accessible and powerful tools for Michael, solidifying his journey toward true financial security and freedom. He was now not just surviving, but thriving, building a legacy for his family. Michael's journey from over-indebtedness to financial security was not a miraculous leap, nor the end of his education, but a gradual and determined climb, paved with discipline, continuous learning, and the conscious adoption of healthy financial habits. Now, the crucial task was no longer just to get out of the hole, but to stay financially secure, a challenge that demanded constant vigilance and unwavering commitment. Ms. Jenkins emphasized the paramount importance of creating and maintaining a robust emergency fund, a financial cushion capable of absorbing life's inevitable blows without destabilizing his finances again. Ideally, this fund should cover 6 to 12 months of basic expenses, providing a vital safety net. For Michael, this became a top priority as he knew from painful personal experience that unforeseen events happen. An unexpected job loss, a medical emergency, an urgent home or car repair, and that having this reserve is the first and most effective line of defense against new debts. He automated weekly or bi-weekly transfers to this high-yield savings account, ensuring that the money was saved before he even had a chance to spend it on something unnecessary. Another fundamental pillar of financial sustainability is the continuous and flexible monitoring of the budget. The budget, Michael learned, is not a static document created once and then forgotten. It needs to be reviewed and adjusted regularly, at least monthly, to reflect changes in income, expenses, or life priorities. Michael does this religiously, using personal finance apps and spreadsheets to ensure he remains in control of his money, rather than being controlled by it. The prevention of new consumer debt became an unnegotiable principle in his life. Michael began using his credit card wisely and with discipline only for purchases he could pay off in full at the end of the month, completely avoiding the interest and the minimum payment traps that ensnared him in the past. He also resisted the temptation of new loans for consumption or luxuries, unless they were for investments that generated real value and appreciated over time, such as a professional training course that would increase his income or an improvement to an asset, like his home that would gain market value. Continued financial education is also vital for the longevity of financial security. The financial world is constantly evolving, with new investment opportunities, economic changes, and unexpected challenges. Michael continues to read up-to-date personal finance books, watch online lectures, listen to specialized podcasts, and occasionally consult with financial advisors to stay current on best practices and strategies, adapting to new realities. He also began actively planning for retirement, a long-term goal that once seemed an unattainable dream.